is Judith Ogana. I hope you can all hear me well. I'm with the UNESCO Regional Office for Eastern Africa, and very pleased and honored to be in this forum. Also, thank you to all the speakers that spoke earlier. That is Bruce, Pierre, Sane, and Hugh for just setting us the context and actually having the buzzwords of the interesting conversation we're about to have. And I had a lot on interconnectivity, dialogue, intercultural exchange, identity development, equity, even creative influencers, social change, shared values. There's so many gems that we have picked up from the first and second session of this program. Our program now, and I'm very delighted to be moderating this session, we are to dive in, or we are diving into arts education for social transformation. And in this session, we have three presentations that are going to be made. And one, I know that Bruce has already enumerated the different sessions that we're going to have, but we will start with what I think is very interesting, which is to see and to have the shared results of the workshop, the workshop survey that was submitted by various respondents. And through this survey, we really hoped to gather insights on the role of identity in the work of NGOs and all the respondents that made or submitted their surveys, and to see how we incorporate identity in the various focus areas that are employed. For that particular session, we will have Chikara Shimasaki, who is the OECD Senior Officer for Innovation Programs and Partnerships, to actually enumerate for us the results of this survey. And he has about 10 minutes. I'm very conscious of time, but I think we will be able to catch up with time in this session. And then I will introduce the other two presenters after we've heard from the survey, the workshop survey that was conducted. So with no further ado, I will welcome Chikara to please proceed with the presentation on the results of the workshop survey. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Judith, and hello, everyone. I will jump right in, and hopefully we can make it a bit shorter than 10 minutes. Here we go. Sorry, apologies. So is everyone able to see the slides? Yeah, great. Okay, so jumping in, the survey, thank you very much, first of all, for everyone filling in the survey. I know you're all busy, but it's been fantastic to get some insights on what's happening on the ground. The type of organizations that have filled in the survey can be broken down roughly in this percentage. So the largest percentage is the NGOs, charities and civil society organizations, universities and schools coming in second, and government organizations third. And the broad categories that the programs and initiatives fit into have been broken down into these three rough percentages, of art education coming in at the biggest, with intercultural dialogue and global citizenship coming third. And breaking the input into various different components and trying to figure out how they sort of categorize, we saw that the building inclusive cultures was the umbrella concept that that permeated throughout all of the respondents. And underneath it, there were about five clusters of activities. So one was in heritage and representation. The other was building awareness of differences and building trust between differences. The other was the initiatives to build the support of the communities in which they work in and how they do that. Critical thinking and self-awareness, the skills and abilities to know what's happening within you was one component. And the biggest of all was providing more equal access and training to resources and initiatives that the organizations offer. So let's just dive straight in. In heritage and representation, we saw that there was a lot of focus on what defines us as Africans and telling it through traditions and culture. Use of mother tongue in early grade settings, as Hugo mentioned in his opening remarks, as preserving and celebrating the intangible cultural heritage. There was an initiative that mirrored the community practice that's already in place, such as stories, poems, and riddles. There was an initiative on building appreciation of diversity through actually looking at a variety of African artifacts and discussing and appreciating the differences and what it represents. There was an idea of bringing different community representations into the literary textbooks, so the children and the participants see themselves in the stories, and that diversifies the perspectives and cultural narratives that children are then exposed to. Moving on, in the awareness and trust building space, we saw the learning children or those who are participating in learning, building meaningful relationships with peers. So those are the skills that allow people to then connect across differences. There was a focus on bridging cultures and how that could be done through bringing different tribes and ethnic groups to participate and exhibiting their goods and services for appreciation. There was an initiative that used music as a social unifier that Pierre talked about, and I think we'll see a video at some point as well. The bridging of religious differences and building that dialogue between different faiths and understanding, as well as ways of creating that culture of inclusivity within the refugee integration practices. In building of the community support, there was an entry on how the organization was reaching into community leaders and that their initiatives align with the cultural values of the communities they work with, building trust and support. There was a focus on inclusion of important themes for the community. What do they value? What are the sort of divisions that are actually existing in that culture, whether it's gender or religion, and then bringing that into the educational context to be discussed. And of course, respecting of the community's cultural narratives, traditions, and values. And this was a slightly smaller section of the survey, but that building of critical thinking and self-awareness, we at OICD see as a vital component of knowing how our own identities work and being able to see that in other people. And one of the practices that we noticed was the thinking of and learning of everyday practices and experiences through criticism and appreciation. And there was an initiative of art therapy being used effectively by visually storytelling and expressing and understanding the narratives within us in context with a broader cultural context. And as well as the group art projects that builds a sense of belonging and shared identity. Again, this was the biggest section where we saw a large numbers of entrants bring in some concepts, and there was a idea of multilingual support to enable wider access to arts. The cultural competence training featured in many responses for skills in cross-cultural communication and the sensitivities and nuances required to communicate across differences. There was a focus on addressing domestic violence through cultural understanding, how it has led to that domestic violence context, and how you might be able to change that through addressing the culture. The promotion of indigenous knowledge was picked up in various different respondents as well, but the thing that sort of ran through it was the need for training and advocacy and research. Art for well-being, so building confidence and reducing anxiety and improving mental health of people, which is the sort of core that allows humanity to connect and fulfill its full potential. There was an initiative that used radio dramas to really talk about the taboo topics that community may not be able to talk openly, and visual and dramatic arts for conveying messages and promoting dialogue. There was a group that was providing mentorship for young people to use hip-hop culture and language and music to express themselves and try changing the social fabric of the communities in which they reside. And finally, the engagement with people with disabilities, orphans, vulnerable children, and out-of-school children. And so there's a wide range of initiatives, and we appreciate your input. What I would like to maybe note at this point is that we would like more details on some of these initiatives, and we have changed the follow-up survey now live on the website, available if you would like to go back at the end of this workshop to fill out more details on your programs, then we'd very much appreciate it. And the website will be shared with you by Rosanna in a minute. And back to you, Judith.
Thank you so much for that rich presentation of different ideas that have come through the survey. It's amazing how much information you can get and so many fantastic ideas, remembering to leave no one behind, ensuring that, of course, users that have people with disabilities or vulnerable children are also remembered, and also the interesting way of using radio drama to ensure that, of course, sensitive topics are dealt with, plus the whole training, research, and advocacy piece. I mean, very many interesting ideas that definitely can be followed up and ensured that, of course, there's a rich approach to this particular topic. Thank you very much again. And again, just to remind that if you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to use the chat box for that, and so that we can continue with the presentations. So that brings us to the end of that particular session. The second session within this session is going to be inviting our next speaker, who is Dr. Christiana Afrikaner. Welcome, Christiana. Christiana is the coordinator of the Africa Union Commission Working Group, which is drafting the AU Arts Education Policy. She wears a couple of hats and is an arts education activist and researcher. And she is the founder of the African Arts Association and its current president. She is also the country representative of the International Study Association on Teachers, and as well as the founder and coordinator of the Ladies Art Link. She will be speaking specifically on how the arts reflect the voice of social cohesion and identity and the link to arts education. So without further ado, I will welcome our next speaker, Dr. Christiana Afrikaner, to take the floor. Please, you're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judith. Let me try to share my screen. Okay. Thank you. Let me use this opportunity to thank Christina and Bruce for inviting me to share a little bit on the arts and arts education on the African continent. The participants, good morning. Let me invite you to come with me on a trip to see the power of identity in the arts, and then how the arts can reflect as a voice of social cohesion and identity on this continent of ours. Excuse me. What we are looking to is to see how the arts can be involved in, or how the arts can harmonize in what we are doing on the continent and abroad. So the arts have the power to transform the society by promoting identity. And that's what we are looking for, how the arts can promote identity. And it is also a tool that is addressing social issues as they provide a unique outlet for connection and the understanding of oneself and others. It also leads to more inclusive and equitable matters in society. To address this, I put some questions for myself and for the participants. Questions like, can arts initiatives grounded in the community contribute to the development of more robust and sustainable communities? Is artistic expression capable of promoting constructive conversation and forging bonds between diverse groups, while also cultivating a collective sense of accountability and inclusion? Another question, can community-based arts projects that encourage collaboration and engagement foster a sense of belonging and a sense of shared responsibility? And can the arts facilitate dialogue and understanding between different groups, thereby helping to bridge gaps and build stronger connections? If you can look attentively to these questions, then it's actually one big question that I've split up in smaller parts. And to respond on this big question and part questions, let's see what the arts can do. Arts unite and transform. It promotes identity, addresses social issues, and it fosters inclusion. We can connect, we can converse, and we can build a better, more equitable world through the arts. Community-based arts initiatives can contribute significantly to developing more robust and sustainable communities. Further on, by engaging with the local artists or culture practitioners, arts lovers, community members can actively shape their surroundings and build a sense of shared ownership and responsibility. Furthermore, through such initiatives, individuals can come together to strengthen social bonds, promote cultural diversity, and foster a more profound understanding of community pride. And that's what we are striving to, community pride, community identity. This can generate a more resilient and sustainable community. I have another question or questions. Do we really need arts training? If the answer is yes, why? If no, why not? And then I'm asking, what is the meaning of arts training? If we need arts training, what is the meaning? The answers will be with the participants. from my side, to respond on these questions, arts education for positive change, a change that we need on the African continent. Here I have stolen some ideas from the African Union arts education policy, the draft that we are working on. Colleagues, please bear with me that I won't go that deep in this policy phase because we are still drafting the policy. We are still working on the policy. And just a correction, I'm not the coordinator of the policy, but I'm the chairperson of the working group. The African Union is the coordinator. So what we are trying to address through this policy is the objectives. We want to advocate with the member countries for an inclusive curricula at all levels of education. We want to see arts education at all levels, from pre-primary to the highest institutions. And with this curricula, we also, or the policy also wants to see that it's inclusive of people with special needs, and that this curricula mainstreams Africa's plural culture, gender, and social inclusion. Also mainstreams the diversity, the history, languages, shared values, identity, gender rights, and then to mainstream community, destiny, and heritage. The policy also wants to promote arts education as a career of choice and entrepreneurial path for the youth. We want to concentrate on the youth, although the households in Africa will be included. Then the policy also speaks about the leverage of arts education to harness technology so as to evolve innovative approaches to recover African indigenous knowledge, histories, and heritage. The policy will also address to set norms, standards, and systems for formative and summative monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of the Africa's arts education policy. Through this policy, we see the arts education from 4 different angles, but different but complementary approaches. Like we see it as education about arts, education in the arts, education through the arts, and education for the arts. We are striving towards the African Union's Agenda 2063 for inclusiveness, and that's why we see the arts from these various angles. As we are on the African ground, we have to look to ways of how we can address the challenges we face in arts and culture. This is one of the reasons we have started with this Africa Arts Association, AFRA. Now, AFRA's main aim is to collaborate arts projects to encourage active participation and engagement that can foster a sense of belonging, foster a sense of collective responsibility, creating an opportunity for people to work together towards a common goal. We are striving towards this. No one must be left behind. We are striving towards one people, one destiny. We know the African saying, if you want to go far, go together. That's what we are striving for. So these projects can help to break down barriers and build bridges between different communities, promote understanding, and promote mutual respect. I want to share these pictures to show that on AFRA level, we only not just do webinars or conferences, we are trying to bring together, we are trying to create space for our entrepreneurs to come together, to sell, to know each other, to build together. Then we have another wing of AFRA referred to as the Ladies Arts Link, LAL. LAL was established last year to bring together female women to come together, to work together, to learn together, just communicate, link up and know each other. So some of the aims of LAL is it helps to play an important role in building an inclusive and connected society within women. By recognizing and valuing diversity through arts, we challenge stereotypes. We are fighting it, and we are rather promoting social justice. We are also trying to empower marginalized communities and give voice to those who are often unheard. Another pictures that you can see what we are trying to do. We don't discriminate against race, culture, age. We are trying to be united as women. This is some of the projects that we are doing to enhance the arts on the continent, the projects that we are doing to empower women for social sustainability. This is another example of the smaller pieces you can see on the screen is pieces coming from different countries.
Dans le webinaire đó.
I hope I'm on again.
Yes, please go ahead. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. This is an example of ladies using this cloth, kitchen cloth, to make some items that they can sell, just to show that as women, we also have some value. Then to do all this, to reach what we want to reach, people we want to reach, if we want to be one, if we want to see an Africa we want, as we are saying, we are because of Africa, we are striving towards an Africa we want. And what is it that we want to see with this Africa we want, with this unity? So we have some elements to enhance this community engagement in arts and culture. To achieve effective community engagement in the arts, it is important to prioritize accessibility, participation, collaboration, diversity, inclusivity, and evaluation. So by embracing the following elements, the arts can help to build strong and inclusive communities. I will be brief. The first one, collaboration. Engage community members in planning and implementing arts and culture projects. This will help to ensure projects are relevant to community needs and interests. As we are dealing with a workshop, I've tried to put on this so that we can deal with it afterwards or in our respective communities. Second one, accessibility. Ensure arts and culture projects are accessible to all community members, inclusiveness, regardless of their background or socioeconomic status. Diversity, inclusivity. Celebrate diversity and promote inclusivity by incorporating a variety of perspectives and experiences into arts and culture projects. This will challenge harmful discrimination especially against women and prejudices. It will break them with education and diversity to promote social justice. The second set, clear purpose. There must be a clear purpose why we are doing arts, why we are doing culture. So the engagement does not mean to be hard. The purpose does not mean to be hard, but it has to be planned. It must be a clear vision of what we want to see with the arts and culture, and then continuity mindset. Invest in the arts, long-term activities, stay active by enhancing community arts, providing arts education, supporting local artists, and creating community-based art projects. Education and emerging artists is crucial for a thriving arts community. Then action. What we want to see is action and action and action. Stay active by enhancing community arts, providing arts education, supporting local artists, and creating community-based art projects. By saying this, in conclusion, arts can help us understand one another and ourselves. Through the arts, we must first find ourselves, know ourselves, and then we can understand the other. As artists, arts educators, or cultural experts, we can see our personal experiences reflected in our works of art. As a culture, we can look to the past and the present works of the arts to better understand our cultural history and current state of being. By saying all this, we are inviting all to be part and parcel of what we are doing on the African continent. We are inviting everyone to work together with us, because AFRA is striving towards this agenda of 2063, where we want to see a healthy Africa, where we want to see a rich Africa, where we want to see an Africa which is talking in unity, which is talking towards taking hands. If you want to join us, there is our contact email address and my mobile number. Feel free to contact us so that we can take Africa on the hands for a better Africa. And I thank everyone.
Thank you very much, Christiana, for a very inspiring presentation on the power of the arts and also the call to action at the end. And thank you for also sharing your contacts so that people can be able to participate in this endeavor. Yeah, you've really encapsulated how powerful the arts can be, and the maintenance of the policy, which I think are very powerful. And thank you also for sharing the examples of your project with the Ladies Art Link, because that is very inspiring as well. And also just giving us very big insights on the work that you're doing with the policy work, and also inviting us to participate. So thank you very much for that presentation. We will have a session, a short session of question and answer. Mark, but Mark is with us. So he says, how do you see the differences or similarities from West to East to South Africa in your work? Christiana, would you like to take that question, please?
Okay. Judith, can you please come again with the question?
Sure. On the chat, Mark Levin asks, how do you see differences or similarities from West to East to Southern Africa in your work?
I really don't see differences, but the similarities that I'm seeing is kind of challenges that we have, common challenges with. For instance, we don't have arts as a subject in many of the African schools. We can see the similarity of lack of support from politicians. The arts and culture events are not supported, or even studying for the arts are not supported. So that's more challenges that we have in common. I hope I've answered the question. We have more challenges in common than what we are really can see as achievements.
He says that's very important. Similarities of challenges vis-a-vis are key. That means that you've answered the question. There's another question about how best we can collaborate with an organization called Kopano Arts Center, who help people with the tools and skills they need to express themselves and fight for inclusion through arts development skills. Perhaps you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I should like to comment on that one. It's a very good one, because that is what we want to see, what we want to hear, that we have to be, we have to collaborate if we want to go far, really. If we have some institutions or organizations dealing with the arts, let's contact each other so that we can see how we can do the arts together. Because at Afra level, we are trying to organize the entire continent of Africa under one umbrella, so that we can have, for instance, dance. We have a lot of dancers, excellent dancers in Africa, but we don't have an organization taking care of the dance. The same with the drama and theater. Although we have visual arts and music as a strong components on the continent, we still have a lack of coming together. So let's contact each other. We can share our contact details so that we can work together. Very welcome. Thank you.
It is now my privilege, really, to introduce and welcome our next speaker, who is Dr. John Johnston. Dr. John Johnston is the Director of Masters Arts Educator and Social Practice at ArtEZ Institute of Arts, and is the Netherlands applicant for UNESCO chair. And Dr. Johnston is an artist, educator, researcher, and activist who advocates for societal change through issue-based arts education, which is IBER. His work is underpinned by his lived experiences of growing up against the backdrop of the ongoing sectarian conflicts in Northern Ireland. He will be speaking on the transformative potential of identity and an issue-based arts education. So without further ado, we will welcome Dr. Johnston to make his presentation. Welcome. Thank you.
Hello, thank you. In a moment, I'm going to share my screen, but first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who spoke so far, and to Bruce and OICD and UNESCO for organizing what I see as an extremely important conversation about the power and potentiality of art education to actually change the world. That's how I see it. I'm very honored to be alongside so many amazing speakers so far, and was deeply moved by the previous speaker and the passion that she talked and showed some examples of the work that the African Congress on Art Education is involved in. What I want to do today is very quickly show a couple of examples of work which I've worked on in the past. Mainly, I'm going to focus on an example that I actually done in Zambia, in Lusaka, around the issue of HIV, AIDS, and human rights. I'll be looking at that in a moment. I also want to frame, I think that we're involved in a conversation here, which seems to me to be very much, we're all on the same page. We believe in this thing. And I think what I think we're struggling for is a language or a way to actually describe it and articulate it to those people who maybe don't believe in it. And that's a crucial conversation which needs to be had. So I'm going to frame this around the concept of issues-based art education, and maybe offer a methodology and a language that we can all maybe adopt and explore and be able to articulate and talk about the work that we do, which of course, looking at the survey that was presented by Chikara, was absolutely incredible. You know, there's so much work being done in this field. It's important that we're able to actually underline it, share it, and have it referenced at a global stage. Yeah, I have a few images mainly to share with you this morning, and I begin by with this particular image, which I'll come back to in a moment or two, which was made by a young person in a school in Southeast London that I used to teach in. So I've been working for a long time using art as a tool to be able to engage with difficult questions around identity. Coming from the part of the world that I come from, identity has been used to create division between two main communities. That would be Catholic, which would be seen as Irish community, and Protestant, which could be seen as British community. So I grew up with this notion of identity very much in the forefront of my mind. And whenever I became an artist and started to study art, I was looking for ways in which I could use art as a tool to be able to engage with some of the difficult questions around identity, particularly how it divides people. And as a teacher of art, I began to use it in classrooms, putting forward questions to students, as opposed to actually working with art in a way which was about objects and drawing and painting and the craft of art. I really wanted the young people that I was working with to engage with questions about who they are, where they come from, where they're going, and what their dreams are, what their visions are for the future, and how they relate to the world around them. And this is what became known as an issues-based approach to art education, as opposed to an object-based. Traditional teaching in schools particularly, but also in formal education, tells us that the emphasis is on instruction, it's on how we manage a classroom, how to do a skill development focus on the instrumental dimension of education. It's politically neutral, by and large, and it is unidimensional. It largely focuses on the individual. I see that as a low-risk option for education work. Moving toward what I really draw on here is critical pedagogy, which talks about the emphasis is on human beings, their needs, their contexts, their histories, their stories, a focus on holistic functions of education. It is political, outwardly political, and it is multidimensional. And for me, it is based on three main things: people, place, and time. And it's with this vision that I began to develop this idea that we need to move maybe beyond what is very prevalent in the West and North as a pupil-centered approach to education to one which is more meaning-centered. And the meaning comes from what we ask ourselves the question: what does it mean to be human? What are our values? What are our purpose? And what are our reasons for being here on this planet at this moment in time? And how do we enhance our understanding of who we are, set against a backdrop of a global conversation about who we are as a society going forward? And working with the ideas of teaching, of education, and experience, I put these three things together into an education form, which is really about the experiential learning and how we learn from dialogue, from talking, from reflection, from thinking and acting. So this is a cycle of action, from thinking, considering, and being in the world. So experiencing it in its reality, reflecting on that experience, again, going back and thinking about it and considering it in a deep and meaningful way, and then going forward with action. And I see issues-based art education as something that enables agency, but it is very much connected to a different way of looking at the teacher-student relationship, or we could say in civil society, the artist and the community relationship, which is reflected in Christiana's comments just a few moments ago about the need for collaboration, codependency, and co-authorship in artistic works. An example of the difference between issues-based arts education and normative arts education can be seen in this very bad drawing. I have to say, I drew it with a mouse, so it's not so good. But the issues-based art emphasizes the importance of the subject as one that revolves around feelings and experiences unique to that subject. The subject in this case are the human beings we work with, be these young people, be these children, be these adults, whatever the case may be. They are the subject of the development of the work. The object in art education presents the opposite. So the vast majority of art education, and particularly the European canon of art education, focuses on things as they are seen. Hence, the cup is taught in a particular way. You must draw it with the European convention so it looks like a cup. Issues-based art education compels the learner and the educator to embrace the complexity of difference, and it addresses difficult questions related to the values and meaning. So when you look at the cup, the second cup below, that is art, that is the cup as it is experienced. I haven't worked in art education across the world for many years and have sat and worked with young people and children. The vast majority of people who have not been taught the European convention will draw something as it's experienced. A cup is something which is round, it is flat because it sits on a table or on the ground, and it has a handle. It's a container which holds liquid. So what we see in the second drawing is an experience of a cup. What we see in the top drawing is as it is seen. And art education throughout the ages has been completely dominated by the top idea that we draw or we make art as it is seen, whereas what issues-based art education talks more about how we experience the world, how we experience our sense of self and other. These are 4 examples of drawings or paintings made by young people and sculptures made by young people at a school in Lewisham in southeast London in 1994. This was the first time I encountered this way of working. And what I noticed was that all the young people in a class of 15-year-olds had a shared venture to give meaning to their world, to claim agency over their lived experience and present this back to the world in an effort to understand their purpose, their values, and their reason. Is a deeply political act of reclamation. They're reclaiming who they are rather than being told who they are in an art lesson by a teacher. Therefore, draw the cup in a particular way. It's the teacher's version of what art education is. In this sense, a question is put before the students or before the participants. Who are you? Where are you going? And where have you come from? In the drawing, the painting on the left is by a young girl from an Asian, Indian, Pakistan tradition who had been already told at 15 years of age that she was going to be married to a particular person. And she, on this image, you can see lots of different symbols and objects, and it's painted on a backdrop of an ironing board to kind of highlight the type of life that she's seen was going to befall her in the future. The large portrait beside that is 3 generations of a Nigerian girl, from her grandmother to her mother to her, and the skin color, the skin tone changed as they were going through those generations through intercultural marriage in London. The one on the right was made by a young man from Tanzania in a school in London, and this was depicting the death of his mother from HIV/AIDS. And the little insects or the horrible little things which are floating around her head represent the virus. Then the sculpture on the right-hand side is by a young girl making a comment on gender equality, particularly on female objectification, and how the Coke bottle, which we're all used to holding, was actually designed around the shape of the female body, that you could actually grab it by the waist. So these are research-based works made by 15-year-old to 16-year-old children. I've used art in many different ways whenever I left formal education, working in community settings, and challenging this idea of a single identity, and particularly in a place like Northern Ireland, was crucial. Symbols, objects, stories, music, all sorts of different features of cultural material are used in the place in Northern Ireland and other places, of course, around the world to create division. I tried to use art, or did use art with young people from both sides of the community, the Catholic and Protestant side, to really challenge that notions of a single identity. I am Irish, I am Catholic, I am British, I am Protestant, I am black, I am white, I am, to open up the possibility that we could be. And finally, I want to just run through some slides of a project that I've done in Lusaka in Zambia, and to enable really agency to give voice to young people on the issue of HIV/AIDS. This was done for World AIDS Day. It was done a number of years ago. I was commissioned to work by Irish Aid. I had already been in Zambia for a number of times over the previous years, working with young people and local artists. And I worked with the local artist on this project called Starry Mwava. We worked in a school called Arakan High School in Lusaka. And our first task was to gather stories. There's 2,500 young people in the school. They come in 2 different shifts. And the group that I was working with was 50 young people, which really made me frightened a lot. But we had this task to make an artwork within a week about their stories, about their experience of HIV/AIDS, something that they'd never been asked before. They gathered data, information from various different quarters, going around the school, talking to friends, talking to others, even talking to teachers, and gathering little stories about people's experience of the virus and their lived experience, and writing these stories on these Post-it notes. Of course, this is highly sensitive material, and that we decided after reading the stories and pasting them onto the wood that we would paint over them. And you chose the color blue, painted over it. The stories could still be seen, but not as clearly as they once were. And then we began to design symbols and images which represented these stories. The young people put drawings together, worked in teams, started to take these drawings and the images and translate them onto the larger piece of wood, the mural as it become. The image on the right-hand side here was a representation of a pretty horrific story. If I had time, I'd ask you to read into it. I'm sure maybe people are already reading into it, of the smaller female figure being penetrated by the large male figure, and the symbols and objects within the circle, which have got the red plus on them, being from tribal beliefs and tribal, which was used a lot in terms of talking about how HIV/AIDS could be cured by having sex with a minor or with a young girl. So these images were quite controversial, but they were giving voice to the concerns of many of these young people that probably had not been heard before. Others began to write their stories and create little books. They produced these books beautifully and presented them to the school teachers and to other people working in the education department in Lusaka. And eventually the young people that were working on the mural decided to cut it up, make it into a jigsaw. And each piece of that jigsaw, of which there were 40, was given the name of an individual young person from the school in previous years who had passed away due to AIDS. They carried it on World AIDS Day. And if you look to the image on the left, you'll see still some resemblance of the Post-it notes, which have now been painted over. This one on the right has a number 27 on it, which represents not only the placement of the piece of jigsaw, but also the name of a young person who had lost their lives to HIV/AIDS. They carried it to the National AIDS Council in Lusaka, and then rebuilt the piece of work in a performative act in front of various different community leaders. The lady in the black was the director of education in Lusaka at that time. The guy with the sunglasses was the ambassador from Ireland. The lady to the left was from Save the Children. So we had assembled these people, particularly for the purpose that the young people would be able to bring this artwork and present it and lay it at their feet. And basically shout out their name, shout out that we have a voice, we have something to say about this issue. We just don't want to be told what this issue is. We don't want to be taught it. We want to actually learn it, and we want to share what we have learned with others. The finished piece was beautiful in many ways, but also deeply challenging. It asked questions of a number of things. It asked questions of society, of how HIV/AIDS had been covered up in many ways, and how it wasn't being addressed in the manner in which these young people felt it should be. It asked questions about their voice and their agency, that they had something to say about this and they wanted to share that with the adults and with the people in power. It also offered an opportunity to be able to bring this idea and this methodology forward, Because after the project was completed, the Director of Education, Lusaka, invited the young people to take one piece of the jigsaw and bring it to another school. And using that piece, start to build a new painting with the stories of the young people in that school. And it became almost, if you could say, hybridic. It became something which grew over a period of time. It was impressive, and it impressed these people, and it needed to impress them. This is what I mean about being able to advocate for this way of working and to talk to people who maybe don't believe in it. We have to show them it. We have to show the power and the possibility of this work. And finally, I want to just read through this, that I believe issues-based art education is a form of change making. And through a combination of research, analysis, and production, participants are encouraged to say something to the world and to themselves about the issues of importance in their lives and the lives of others. This can include universal themes such as environment, war, conflict, social justice, human rights, and of course, more personal issues such as relationships, sexuality, belonging, and home. These issues were the starting point of an investigation that ultimately give them ownership over their story and their place in the world. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for that powerful presentation. I'm completely lost for words. I was just in the middle of trying to absorb, that powerful project that you talked about of the Lusaka project, for, getting to hear what the last comment was. So really a lot of things to absorb, a lot of lessons to learn. Seeing the multiplier effect and the powerful effect of such projects that really can tackle various issues in society, this one being on AIDS, HIV and AIDS. I think there's a microphone that's on. I'll just wait for it to settle. Thank you. Lillian, if you could please put off your phone. Thank you very much for putting off that microphone. So I was in the middle of just feeling very overwhelmed and very, getting the passion through your presentation. Thank you very much. I have copious notes, but I think I won't go there because I think there's a lot of people who want to also contribute to the conversation and as well as ask questions. But more importantly, let's hear from, the more than 70 people who are on this, in this meeting, in this WhatsApp group. Sorry, not WhatsApp group, but the Zoom meeting, and so that we can be able to then have this conversation and then hopefully see how we move to the next session. So I think we'll start with Luke, who has his hand up as I wade through the questions on the chat. So please, Luke, come through.
Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd talk out loud because, as we know, Zoom there can be some eerie silences, which it's nice to get everyone talking. But yeah, Joe, thank you very much for an incredible presentation and a very powerful project, very moving. I had quite a technical question. I just wanted to ask if you could clarify the high risk to low risk spectrum. So what is the actual risk when it comes to critical pedagogy? Just clarifying that there. Thank you.
I think the risk comes in the form of vulnerability, that the educator or the teacher in this case has to be open to the possibility that they may lose control. That's the only risk. And all other forms of education, if you could say, on the more traditional forms of education, are very much about the teacher having control. So whenever you move toward a critical pedagogy, and particularly through an issues-based arts approach, you are moving to a place where some people could say there's a great risk of things happening here. There's a great risk of things being opened up. So what happens if a young person starts making artwork about a trauma? How do you deal with that? And I think I think these are really valid questions, and questions which come up quite a lot about the issues-based approach. I would say that we must make a very clear definition between issues-based art education and art therapy. Art therapy's got a clinical parameter to it. It's very much about the individual unpacking and understanding the complexities of their own life, the lived experience. Issues-based art is about taking an issue, connecting it to the personal, but then bringing it back out into the public domain. And that in itself is a political act. It is about gaining agency over a particular issue. And at times that can be vulnerable. That can make a teacher, it can make an educator, or make an artist vulnerable. So the skills to be able to manage that type of relationship or that type of approach are important to acquire. And it is also a pedagogy, a way of doing it, how you build the relationships with the young people, as opposed to being a leader, one over, telling them what to do, to being on a parallel, as Paulo Freire talks about, the sort of horizontal axis where you're in dialogue with the other. The other risk is, of course, if you're going to ask young people to tell their story or to work in some way with their identity and the very things that make them who they are, you as an educator must be prepared to do the same. You must be prepared to enter into a dialogue. And that means that you must show something of yourself in that relationship. And that can make a lot of people feel very vulnerable. So the only risk that I see in the switch from that sort of traditional to the critical is that the vulnerability of being undone, the vulnerability of being seen, the vulnerability of being open. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it's what a colleague in the Netherlands, are actually working in the UK now, calls a beautiful risk of education. The beautiful risk of education, the guy called Kurt Bista. He's written a book on this. And I think that's the only risk that I really see. And I think it is a beautiful risk, and it's a risk worth taking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I'll just go through the questions, certainly from before we had Dr. Johnston's presentation. One is really asking for support for the art gallery in Lagos that would increase art in the art at large. I think that certainly from UNESCO, we have several ways that we engage with practitioners in the culture and creative industries, and I'd welcome you, Adewale, to visit the office in Nigeria, Abuja, to be able to understand the different modalities. But he also asks for other international arts bodies for support. So perhaps if there's anybody who can respond directly to that, please feel free. Dr. Joyce asks Christiana, kindly explain education in the arts and education for the arts, and what that distinction or what the difference is there. So I'll welcome Christiana to take the floor on that. And maybe if you have a comment on the previous question on supporting the art galleries, perhaps any examples that you can present or share, that will be welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Let me start with the last one, support. We are currently busy to register or affiliate with some institutions. So the floor is open to still contact us, because we are planning a big meeting for how we can address these challenges. So maybe from that meeting on, we might have some answers on how we can support the institutions. But sir, you are welcome to contact me afterwards. Then the question on the difference between education in arts and the other one is about, So education in arts involves teaching and learning about various forms of art, like the music, dance, drama, visual art, and so on. And it helps people to develop their artistic abilities and to gain a deeper appreciation of the arts and the role in society. I think it's also arts education also teaches the valuable skills. This is what we meant with in arts and about arts. This is to teach people more about the arts, how to do the arts, like we did with this workshop now. Teach people about the arts, about the differences in arts, how you can get involved with the arts, and where you can apply artistic skills and so on. That's the difference between two, that one in is mostly with education. I hope I could answer well.
Yes, that is very clear. Thank you very much. The next question is a big question, and I think I'll ask both our previous speakers to respond to, which is, where does, when you talk about arts education, where does it all start? Who is in charge of inculcating it, and at initial level, and what tools do they use, and how can they be empowered? So it's a big question around how do we engage? Where does it start? Where are the tools? And how do people actually get into the process of developing art in education? So I'll welcome both Dr. Johnston and Christiana to respond to that very quickly. Thank you.
Christiana, would you like to take the lead?
Okay. Okay. A short lead. I think it starts with the birth of a child, I will say, because whilst still in, the baby enjoys music already, hears languages already. Yesterday read of a study that says that children or babies can differentiate between words or music as from 8 months. So it starts with the birth of a child, and then we take it to the pre-primary school, then through the school systems and so on. And the tools that we normally use should be at home already before we can attend to school, and before they can use other instruments and skills and whatsoever. So in short, I will say it starts at home with the parents.
Well, you know, I see art and as exactly as you say, Christiana, it starts pre-birth, really, this connection to something which is inherent in our human capacity, which is to be creative. Going a little bit further than that, a number of philosophers in the past have identified two functions for art. One which we can say is motivated, and the other which one could say is non-motivated. And I think the non-motivated function lies in that inherent capacity, desire, need for us human beings to be creative. The motivated is when we start to talk about art education. That's whenever we start to take this inherited need, this thing which makes us human, I could say, this creative capacity, and we start to channel it. We start to put it in particular directions for the motivated functions of learning. So if we really understand that, then we can start to use this thing, this beautiful thing, which is inherent in all human beings, to be creative, to see beyond our own selves, see beyond our own skin, outside of our eyes. If we can take that amazing power and possibility and then use the motivated functions to be able to make our world a better place, to create intercultural dialogues and understanding, to break down the boundaries that identity so often creates, to recognize the value and the beauty of identity, but also recognize the dangers of it, then we're using art in a manner in which it's really not just useful for the world, but it really is vital for the world in this time. So I see it looking at the motivated and non-motivated functions. The non-motivated functions come from our capacity to be human and make meaning of this life. And the motivated functions are coming from how do we use this thing, this amazing power, this amazing ability that's been given to us. How do we use it? This part of the brain which so often is left dormant or left to one side in favor of mathematics, in favor of English, in favor of languages. We really need to see that the heart of our human being, our capacity to be human, is this notion to be creative. And I think that the motivated function allows us to see that and use that in a manner in which it can benefit the world.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm told, of course, we've completely run out of time, but we are still, for this particular session, but we're still together for another couple of sessions. But in winding down, I would like to really thank our presenters.